Looking out the window, I watched her walk away from her lover to go back to our home. Anyone watching her walk would realize that she had a real sore pee. And from the way that she walked, she was going to be sore for a couple of days. Oh yes, she was going to pay. Thursday and Friday, I alternated between my job and my projects. Thursday afternoon, he got a call from Marge saying that this has been great, but that she could not see him anymore, and that she was ending the affair. They fought for a bit, and then promised to talk again soon. Late Friday evening, I did the final transfers between computers, sent some emails, and then deleted the keyloggers from both Marge's and Perez's laptops, as well as clearing their logs. I accessed Marge's computer through Perez's, knowing that the login program would note that the IP address was from the motel. I forwarded all of her active quotes to Perez. I drove back to the house Sunday afternoon. Nobody was home. I picked up the 4 voice recorders and cleared them without listening to them. George could have them, and the one from her car back now. Then I unpacked and got a drink. Julia and Marge got home shortly, having been to the grocery store. Tom arrived as we were putting things away, and we had a quiet last night. Monday morning, I was at work when around 11 a.m., I got a call from our family doctor's office. The receptionist asked me to come in immediately, if possible, but that it must be today. I asked why, but she just said that the doctor wanted to see me. When I informed her that I would not take off work on short notice without a reason, she offered to have the doctor speak to me. Dr. Benson picked up and said, "David, I do need you to come to the office as soon as possible. I need to run some tests on you." I replied, "Doctor, I will be in, but please tell me what brought this up and why it is so immediate. I'd rather speak in person. I need to know if I should just go check myself into a hospital for immediate surgery, doctor, or just update my will. You are leaving me hanging." He sighed and said, "Okay, David, your wife came in this morning feeling bad. Tests showed that she has 3 sexually transmitted diseases. She told us that she has not had it with anyone but you, so it is likely that you are infected, and gave her the diseases. Doctor, I will be right over." When I arrived, the normally friendly staff was not. A sullen nurse led me to an exam room and took a blood sample. If you're enjoying my content, consider joining my Patreon community. By becoming a patron, you'll get access to full parts of my videos much earlier than everyone else. Plus, you'll be supporting me to create even more awesome content for you. Check out the link in the description to join now. It hurt like hell, and I noticed that she was using a really big needle. About an hour later, Dr. Benson walked in with a puzzled look on his face. He started talking as he was still walking in. "David, you do not have any venereal diseases. I apologize for my statement on the phone. I just assumed that Marge was telling me the truth, but she wasn't." "I understand, doctor. I am glad that I am clean," I added. "Marge and I haven't had it in a while. I now know that she cheated on me. I'm sorry. And here is a copy of your test results." Right then, my cell phone rang. It was my daughter. I said, "Doctor, I'm sorry, but my daughter never calls during the day unless there is an emergency." He nodded as I answered to hear Julia sobbing into the phone. "Honey, what's wrong?" "Daddy, Mom just told us that you have been cheating on her and that now you have given her a disease," she cried. "How could you?" "Julia, I am at the doctor's now. I do not have any venereal disease," I told her gently. "Let me put Dr. Benson on to confirm that." After doing so, he handed the phone back to me. Julia sobbed, "Daddy, I am so sorry that I doubted you. So very sorry. It's just that Mom was so cold and matter-of-fact about it when she told us that we just believed her." "I understand, baby. It's okay," I told her. "Now tell your brother the truth, but please do not tell your mother that we talked. I will be home shortly." When I went to the receptionist to pay my copay, she slid some papers over to me, saying, "These are copies of your test results showing that you are clean. The HIPAA regulations do not allow us to give you any information about your wife's medical issues." Sliding some more paper to me, she added, "But I must have made a mistake and accidentally given you copies of her report as well." She looked me in the eye and smiled. I realized that Marge was not going to be well treated in this office when she came over for her VD treatments. I thanked the lady and headed home for the final confrontation. Arriving home, I saw that Marge's parents had been invited to this circus. I parked my car in the garage and entered the kitchen. I could hear voices from the living room, talking and sobbing, but mostly I noticed my father-in-law. Standing about 6 feet 4 inches and 230 pounds, a retired coal miner, he was always difficult to miss. Now, standing there red-faced, glaring at me with hatred in his eyes, his hands clenched into fists, he had my attention. It didn't help when he snarled, You cheated on my baby, and you gave her a disease. I am going to wipe this floor with you." Figuring that I had about 2 seconds to avoid a serious ass-kicking, I walked over to him, put my face about 6 inches from his, and, staring into his rage-filled eyes, said, "If I did that, you'd be in a hole not to beat the shit out of me." But I didn't do it. Confusion battled with rage. He stared back, until finally, he asked, "Tell me. Make it quick." I handed him a copy of each medical report. He read them 6 times, and then just stared at the pages while the crying in the living room got louder. Finally, he met my gaze and said, "You're clean. My baby has a venereal disease, but someone else gave it to her. She lied to me and she cheated on you." I said, "We have been having problems lately and haven't had it in a while. That saved me from getting her diseases." "But you couldn't have known that." "David, I am sorry for what I said and for what I thought about you." "It's okay. Thanks for listening. My marriage is probably over, maybe my life, but I am glad that you were willing to listen." We headed toward the living room, but suddenly he stopped and asked, "Marge told us that she has one STD, chlamydia, but you said diseases. Did you mean more than one?" "Yeah, she also has syphilis and gonorrhea," I answered. His eyes tightened and he said, "Let's go have a talk." I grabbed him by his shirt and shoved him against the countertop. Now it was me hissing at him. "On my terms. She is your baby, but she is my wife, and she should not have brought her parents or our children into this. But she did. My baby, Julia, called me in tears. I don't know yet what my son thinks. You are a witness here because your baby dragged you and them into this. But that is it." Staring up at him in a rage, "At this guy who could throw me through a wall," I added. "I don't care what you hear. This is about my family. You stay the hell out of it. Understand?" Quietly, he said, "Yes, I understand, David." I released him, and we walked into the living room. Both Marge and her mother screamed at me. Tom was sitting in a chair, crying. Julia dodged her grandfather and plastered herself to me saying, "Daddy, I love you." Tom followed a moment later. I found myself in a double hug while my mother-in-law cursed me and my wife cried. Julia touched the papers in my hand, and while staring me in the eyes, asked, "Is this the proof?" I nodded. Julia took the papers, and with a guilty look, she stepped back to read the medical reports. She pulled on Tom's arm and showed him the important lines. They exchanged looks, and then both hugged me harder than before. Marge's mother cursed again and then said, "How can you two hug that cheating bastard? He gave your mother a disease." Marge, on the sofa, cried harder. Julia pulled away to walk over to her grandmother. She knelt down in front of her and, staring into her eyes, offered up both medical reports. A few moments later, my mother-in-law buried her face in her hands. Marge screamed, "What? What does everyone think is so different? That bastard cheated on me and gave me an ST." Julia's face was indescribable as she got up from her grandmother and knelt down in front of her mother. She again showed both medical reports, pointing to the lines that proved that I was clean, but that Marge was not. Marge's face drained of color as she understood the reports. Julia said, "Mom, you lied to us. You cheated on your husband. You are a W." Marge gasped, and her hand swung at Julia's face in retribution. My daughter has fast reflexes. Her arm flashed up to block the hit. Now it was her turn to hiss, "Mother, don't ever try to hit me again. You have lost that right. You are my mother and I love you." Getting up, she added, "But you are a lying ass. You tried to turn my brother and me against our daddy to cover your activities. I will never forgive that, US." She returned to me, and again I was hugged by both of my children. Marge stared at the three of us together and quickly found a defense. "Kids, your father must have given me the disease 2 or 3 weeks ago. Accidentally, I am sure. He didn't know his lover had infected him." He must have had symptoms well before me and gone to some clinic for the cure. We haven't had it in a while. Though I have asked David to make love to me, he has refused. With puppy dog eyes, Marge looked at everyone but me and added, I have not cheated on my husband. I never would. But he did. And now he has set me up to look like I did it. Please believe me. I have not had it with anyone but my husband since we met. Well, everyone except Marge and me was looking confused now. I could see that Marge's dad was again thinking about pounding me through the floor. Time to go to the last level, the last chance that Marge could come clean, and perhaps we could save our marriage.